Today, we are going to learn how to conjugate the verb ser. The verb ser means to be. Before we start, I'd like for you to kind of check in with yourself and find out how you're feeling about this big word called conjugation. Do you know what conjugation means? Do you feel pretty comfortable? Are you kind of like a little iffy, or do you really not know anything at all as far as what conjugating a verb means? It doesn't matter where you're at in this scale. Again, it's just for you to track your progress throughout this lesson. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get our conjugation on. What does it mean to conjugate a verb? The good news is that you already do this in English. You conjugate every day. Anytime you speak and anytime you use a verb in English, you're most likely conjugating. So all we're going to do is do it in Spanish. Conjugation means taking a verb and changing it to match the person that is doing or performing the action. Let's take, for example, the verb to be, which is the one we're going to be working on, and let's look at it in English. You say, I am, but he is. You are. That right there, that's conjugation. That's what we're going to learn how to do, but in Spanish. Are you ready? Let's get right into it. Conjugation in Spanish is based on the subject pronouns, which you and I already learned. You may be feeling still a little iffy with the subject pronouns, and that is normal. It's going to take a little practice. The one thing I want to make sure you understand is that from here on out, those subject pronouns we're going to be using a lot. So it's important that you work on memorizing them exactly in the order that I share them with you. Right here, they are. They are specifically in an order because what happens is verbs are going to share certain conjugations. For example, I, yo, will have a conjugation. You, tu, will have a conjugation. But do you see he, she, and you formal? They all share the same line. That means they will share the same conjugation, which is why you want to memorize the subject pronouns in the order that you have them until they become second nature. So again, taking it back to the beginning, our goal today, by the end of this lesson, is that you're able to conjugate the verb to be, ser, in Spanish. You will be able to say things such as I am, you are, he is, we are, they are, and all those kinds of conjugations. Got it? So let's get right into it. In order for me to say I am, I'm going to take the subject pronoun yo, which means I, and the conjugation for yo is soy. Soy. So remember, yo soy, I am. Yo soy, I am. For you, tú, and remember that tú is informal. The conjugation for tú is eres. Eres. Tú eres. You are. Yo soy. Tú eres. Now we talked about that él, ella, and usted, which is the you formal, will share the same conjugation. So let's take a look at what that is. In order for you to say he is, you're going to say él es. She is. Ella es. Now, you formal, which we said is usted, and it's abbreviated into UD period, is going to be es also. So, usted, you formal, es. Usted es. So, let's review those singular forms. We're talking about one person. Yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, and usted es. Now let's talk about the plural forms, more than one person. Nosotros, and remember, that could also be nosotras, depending on how that group is composed. All males, all females, or males and females. So nosotros and nosotras somos. It's always going to be somos. Doesn't matter if it's nosotros somos or nosotras somos. Verbs do not have gender. They don't change. So always nosotros somos, nosotras somos. Vosotros, which is you plural in Spain. And again, we have the masculine form and the feminine form. Vosotros and vosotras is going to be sois. Vosotros, vosotras, sois. Lastly, we have ellos, ellas, and ustedes. If you remember, ellos, they, masculine or a group of males and females. Ellas, feminine, they, we're talking about them. And then we have ustedes, which is you guys, you plural. They all share the same conjugation. So it's going to be ellos son, ellas son, and ustedes son. So ellos son, they are, ellas son, they are, ustedes son, you guys are. So right here we have all of the conjugations of the verb ser. The conjugations are as follows: soy, eres, es, somos, sois, and son. By the time you get a little bit more practice and you memorize those subject pronouns, you know the order that they're in, all you will have to do anytime we conjugate a verb is memorize the conjugations and you will know who they match with. So again, that's why I'm able to say soy, eres, es, somos, sois, and son. And eventually you should be able to do the same. So let's stop here. Let's do a little review before we go into a little bit of practice. Yo soy. I am. Tú eres. You are. Él es. He is. Ella es. She is. Usted es. You formal are. Nosotros somos. We are. Nosotras somos. We are. Vosotros or vosotras sois. You guys in Spain are. Ellos son. They are. Ellas son. They are, but feminine. And ustedes son, you guys, you plural, are in Latin America. Before we go on to the next part, I want to kind of give a few tips to you. Some of you probably already figured this out, and some of you may need a little extra help. So I want to make it clear so that it makes things easier for you. Anybody else plus I equals nosotros. Think about it in English. Anytime you say Ana, Pedro, Maria, and I, you could replace all of those names with we. So in Spanish, we do the same thing. Anybody else plus I is always a nosotros. So keep an eye out for it because it may get a little tricky as you learn to fill in some sentences and put some sentences in together. Another one to remember, anybody else plus you, that's going to be ustedes. Again, think about it in English. Pedro, Maria, Juana, and you. You guys. That immediately makes it you guys. You could replace all of that long line of names with you guys. So you should be able to do the same thing in Spanish. So now you can probably see when we did our lesson on vocabulary and we were introducing other people, we learned to say, ella es Maria. That's why. Because ella es means she is. Ella es Maria. We also learned to say the masculine version, él es Juan. He is Juan. You even learned to say, I am. Yo soy Catalina. So really, in reality, you already knew and you had already been exposed to some of those conjugations, but more in a vocabulary sense. Now you know where those words, where those conjugations of verbs come from. Yo soy, I am, él es, he is, ella es, she is. We also use the verb ser, to be, when we were talking about where somebody was from, whether you were asking a question or whether you were answering a question. Remember this question? ¿De dónde eres tú? ¿De dónde eres? Because remember, in Spanish, we don't have to use the subject pronoun. We talked a little bit about that in our previous lessons. Why? Well, this is a time where I get to explain to you really why we don't have to use that subject pronoun. Look at the subject pronoun table and the conjugations. Eres always goes with tú. Always. So if I say, ¿de dónde eres?, it is clear that I'm asking you. So there's no need to put tú. Is it wrong if you add it? No. It just adds emphasis, and there's nothing wrong with that. But depending on the speaker, depending on what's going on, depending on how passionate we are about the conversation, we may add it, or we may choose not to add it. Again, remember, you could say, soy Catalina, or yo soy Catalina. It doesn't matter. So be patient with yourself. Conjugating is going to take a little bit of practice, but you are certainly going to master it. I've seen thousands and hundreds of thousands of students master it every year that I am working with them. So I have no doubt that you're going to get there too. It's just going to take practice. So speaking of practice, let's see how we do. I'm gonna pop up some sentences here. I want you to look at your conjugation chart, and I'm also going to have it on the screen in case you want to refer back to it. Again, baby steps. It's okay to look at it for now until you get used to it. And what I want you to do is fill in the blank with whatever conjugation you think should go there. Let's do the first example together. Ella blank de Colombia. Ella blank de Colombia. What conjugation of the verb ser would you put in that blank? Yes, that is correct. Ella es de Colombia. Ella es de Colombia. She is from Colombia. Here's an example, and I want you to stop and think. This is one of those that may be a little bit tricky, so I'm just giving you a heads up. So, María, Pedro, Juan y yo, blank, amigos. María, Pedro, Juan y yo, blank, amigos. In case you don't remember or you need a little bit of extra help, y, that y, equals and. María, Pedro, Juan y yo. What would that make? What subject pronoun could we replace that with? I see you thinking. That's right. That would be nosotros. Remember, anybody else plus I or and I makes a nosotros. And if that happens, the conjugation in the blank would be, yes, somos. María, Pedro, Juan y yo somos amigos. María, Pedro, Juan, and I are friends. Let's do the next three all on your own. If you need to pause the video to fill in the blanks and get a little extra time, you can always do that. And then I'm going to give you the answer for all three of them. Okay? Good. Here are the questions. Here are the exercises. Remember, you are filling in the blank with the correct form of ser. How did you do? How do you feel? Again, no matter what your answers are, remember to be patient with yourself. This is your first time, most likely, that you have conjugated a verb in Spanish. So let's see how you did. The answers are es, son, and eres. Es, son, and eres. Let's break it down. Peter es mi colega. Peter, the word Peter, the name Peter, can be replaced with the subject pronoun he. He is my colleague. Peter is my colleague. Mary y Petra son mis amigas. Mary y Petra. Mary and Petra can be replaced with ellas, they. Two girls, they. They are my friends. Mary y Petra son mis amigas. Ellas, the conjugation for ser is son. So ellas son Mary y Petra son mis amigas. Tú eres inteligente. Tú eres inteligente. Tú, you, informal. The conjugation of the verb ser is eres. And you probably were able to figure out that inteligente means intelligent. This is one of those places I like to throw in a few words that even though I haven't directly taught you, you probably are able to figure out what they are because they're called cognates. Cognates, true cognates, are words that look very similar in English and Spanish, and you are able to identify them. Inteligente, intelligent, is one of them. So, tú eres inteligente. You are intelligent. And that's it. Just like that, you conjugated your first verb in Spanish, the verb ser, to be. You should be able to now say, I am, you are, he is, she is, you formal are, we are, you guys are in Spain, they are, you guys are in Latin America. So let's check in and see how are you feeling about conjugation. Are you feeling pretty confident? Are you feeling like you need a little bit of practice? Or are you feeling like you need a lot of practice? Again, this is just a self-check-in for you to know where you're at in this lesson. Do you need to replay it to get a little bit more practice? That's okay. This is your Spanish learning journey. However, if you're ready to go and you feel pretty confident, then you're ready to move on to the next lesson.